Moving right along. Our next topic is transition words, and this is a pretty important one. There are many transition word questions on the test, so I highly recommend that you listen up. You'll get a lot of points if you can really kind of secure this strategy. So our first question is number 9. All right, and and we read, and you can tell a transition word question. If you look at the answers, they're all transition words, right? They link, I mean, in this case, it's starting a sentence, but they'll either start a sentence or be right in the middle of a sentence. And what you need to do is get the context. In other words, you need to read the sentence before it and the sentence after it, so you get the relationship between those two sentences. So let's start number 9. Now, we're going to actually start with the sentence before that, right, and then go into number 9. Greek yogurt is slightly lower in sugar and carbohydrates than conventional yogurt is. Also, because it is more concentrated, Greek yogurt contains slightly more protein per serving. And I'm just going to stop there, because we don't really care about the second half of the second sentence. We just want to link the two. So what I do is I go back to the first sentence and summarize that in my head. All right, so the first sentence is just saying that Greek yogurt is lower in sugar and carbs. And then the second sentence says that it has more protein. So the first thing I ask myself is, are those two going against each other? Are they opposing? Or are they kind of going along in the same fashion with each other? And I would say they're going along in the same fashion. They're not saying exactly the same thing, but they don't oppose. They're just saying various benefits of Greek yogurt. So I don't want any opposing words. So I look in the answers and I say, are there any opposing words? I don't see anything opposing. Opposing would be like however, or but, or nevertheless, right? And there's no words like that in here. So, all right, that didn't get me much. Now, I want to look at each of the individual answers. Also just means like in addition. And I think that seems fine. So it's lower in this and that and higher in that. It's just, it seems okay. I think I'm just going to leave it. Even if I don't really like it that much, leave it. In other words, now in other words means you're saying essentially the same thing, but using different words. So, but I don't think they're saying the same thing. The first one's talking about sugar and carbs, and the second one's talking about protein. So it's not saying the same thing in different words. So I'd cross off B. Therefore, now this is important, therefore is causal. This thing happened, therefore this other thing happens, right? Is the first thing causing the second thing? No, again, it's just two different facts. So there's no causal relationship, C goes. And for instance is just, like it's like the same thing as for example. Is the first thing, is the second thing an example of the first one? No, it's not. Nothing else works but also. Now, even if you don't like also, it's better than everything else, so suck it up and pick it as your answer. Okay, you get it? There's a lot of these on here. I don't know how many we'll end up doing, but let's do number 14. Yeah, that's a good one. Okay, so this is the same thing. It's starting a sentence, so we read the sentence before. All right, now, so the sentence before we already did. We combined, for number 13, we combined those two sentences. So when we go back here, I'm going to read it in its corrected form. Typically, the ice sheet begins to show evidence of thawing in late summer, following several weeks of higher temperatures. For example, in the summer of 2012, virtually the entire Greenland ice sheet underwent thawing at or near its surface by mid-July, the earliest date on record. Now, I'm going to go back to that first sentence and summarize it in my head. And I'm not going to summarize, I just want like really general. I don't care about any details here. So my summary is going to be, there is thawing in late summer. Okay, that's what the first one says. The ice thaws in late summer. The second one says there's thawing in mid-July, which is early. So what's the relationship? Are they going opposite or are they going with each other? I would say they're going opposite, because the first one says it thaws late. The second one says it's thawing early. So I want an opposite word. When I look at number 14 answers, I look at, there's however. However is an opposite word. That's the one I'm picking. They're not going to give you two words that are opposite words. There might be an exception here and there if their opposite word has a nuance that makes it different than the other one. But when you see an opposite word, chances are really good that it's only going to be that one opposite word in the answer choices. Alrighty, let's try another one. Let's go to 27, and I'll see if I like that one. Sure. Now, it's the same kind of thing, where it's starting a sentence, and that's usually how it goes. But it could also come in the middle of a sentence. That is possible. So we read, we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to start with the sentence before. The spaces are usually stocked with standard office equipment, such as photocopiers, printers, and fax machines. In these locations, however, the spaces often include small meeting areas and larger rooms for hosting presentations. So I go back to the first sentence and I summarize. And it says the spaces have standard office equipment. The second one says they have small rooms and large rooms. So the question is, are they going opposite or are they going with each other? And I would say they're definitely not going opposite. They're just describing the space, right? It has office equipment and it has different size rooms. So I want to get rid of any opposite sounding words. It says, in these locations, however. That's an opposite word. No, cross it out. Now I can look at each of the other ones individually, in addition to equipment. Now, that would mean that the sentence before has to be talking about equipment, and it is. It's standard office equipment. So I like B, but I'm going to not ignore the other ones. For these reasons is causal, right? For these reasons, this other thing happens. And no, this is, again, it's just describing the spaces in two different ways. So C doesn't make sense, and D is likewise. Likewise is similar, although not exactly like, in other words. Likewise means along the same vein. And I think B works better. It's more specific. It refers to the equipment which was in the previous sentence. So there it is. B is your answer. Now, I have two others on my list that I just want to take a look at just to see if they're any different. 34 and 38. So, and we're not even going to do the whole thing. We're going to kind of shortcut these two. 34, if you just look at the answers, if you look at C and D, in contrast and nevertheless, those are two turnaround words. They're opposite going words. And so both of those immediately you can just get rid of. Okay, that's a shortcut. Just always look at the answer choices and see. If you have two synonyms in them, out they go. And go down to the bottom of the page, 38, and we look at A is therefore. Therefore and thus also are synonyms. They mean the same thing. It's causal. This thing happens first, thus this next thing happens next. So therefore and thus, if you see them together, they go out. All right. That's enough of that, I think. Now, we're going to do one more question. It's on the same page. And this is about setting up for the information that follows. Not too many questions, but you may have one question like that on a test, maybe one or two maximum. So let's look at this. 37 reads, which choice most effectively sets up the information that follows? So again, here, you obviously need to read the information that follows so you know how to set it up. So let's just read the information that follows first, and then we'll go back to the answers. So after 37, it says, a 1994 survey concluded that only 18% of American colleges required at least one philosophy course. And I'm just going to continue to the end. The answer to 38 is moreover, so I'll read it with that. Moreover, between 1992 and 1996, more than 400 independent philosophy departments were eliminated from institutions. So I'm going to summarize it again, because whenever I read, I like to summarize to get it clear in my own head. The first sentence says only 18% of colleges require philosophy. And the second one talks about how many philosophy departments are eliminated. So it's kind of like bad news for philosophy in colleges. So now I'm going to look at the answers. And A says philosophy students have been getting offered a lot of jobs. Well, I don't think that sets up the information that follows. So B says colleges increase their offerings in philosophy. No, that's exactly the opposite. B goes. C says, notwithstanding the attractiveness of this course of study, students have resisted majoring in philosophy. Well, nobody said anything about that. It's just talking about colleges requiring it and then philosophy departments being eliminated. It doesn't say anything about students. So I'm thinking the answer is going to be D. And it says, despite its many utilitarian benefits, colleges have not always supported the study of philosophy. That's clearly it, right? So this is why when you read it, you summarize it. Because if you come to the understanding in your own head, you will not get sucked into any of their answers that might be appealing to you for some reason, but are still wrong. Okay, that's it. I think I'm going to end the video here. And we have one or two more videos, I'm not sure, but a few more things to talk about, and then we'll be done. Okay, ciao.